Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Paula Adams, and today I'm going to share my story living and loving and raising a child with Miller Dieker Syndrome, which is a type of lissencephaly. What is lissencephaly? The word itself means smooth brain. So all the different variations of lissencephaly involve brain malformations that cause parts of the brain to be smooth when they should have grooves in them. It is a severe diagnosis. Being a special needs mom of a severely disabled child can make you feel like you're the only one in the world. But thanks to the power of the internet, we know now that there's more kids like this than we knew. Just imagine if your child had been born, say, 50 years ago, you wouldn't have the internet to reach out to other parents, and all you would know about your diagnosis is what the doctor told you. I still remember when my daughter was first diagnosed, the way one of the doctors treated her. I had taken her in, and we didn't know what was wrong with her. We had no idea. We knew that she was delayed, and we knew she had been crying a lot, and we had been told maybe she was constipated or maybe she was just a little behind in her development. But this one doctor looked at her with this look of disgust and basically told me, yes, something's wrong with her, and just sent me out the door. He offered no comfort, no information, and he just pushed us out to the next doctor. That really hurt in that moment. Obviously, I haven't forgotten it 20 years later, but in hindsight, I know that it was a good thing that he let me know what kind of a person he was. We didn't need to be under his care at all. We needed to find someone who cared about special needs children, and we did. And as a Christian, I believe that God was leading us to the right doctor. You want a doctor that is going to encourage you to be involved in your child's care and not just treat you like, you're the babysitter and they're the expert. Because really, they see your child maybe, 15 minutes every couple months or so, or 6 months, or every year. And you live with that child. So you are going to have to become an expert on lissencephaly. Don't be scared by that, because you can do it. I'm here to tell you, I never thought I would know the things or be able to do the things that I do now. But God has provided me, everything I've needed over the years. We found out about my daughter's specific condition through genetic testing. We took her to a doctor at the Baylor College of Medicine genetics department in Houston, Texas. The person was so good at her job that she basically diagnosed my daughter just by looking at her face. And her face looked pretty normal to everyone else, but she noticed some very small features that other people wouldn't notice. And she ordered a test called a FISH test. That test came back positive. That's something they're still researching, and hopefully they'll find out someday and maybe they can prevent it. We went home with our baby girl and pretty much in shock. We had already been through blindness and deafness tests. We were happy to find out she wasn't blind, typically blind, but she does have cortical vision impairment, which really means it's like the brain is causing the impairment, not the eyes. And she can hear just fine. So that was a good thing. I hope the bird in the background isn't going to be too distracting. Sorry about that. Over the next week, the doctors that we were involved with helped us get set up with early childhood intervention. They started coming to the house to give my daughter therapy, which at that time, by that point, she was on seizure medications. All she pretty much did was sleep or cry. So I can't really say that the therapy did much. You do what is best for your child. If you think your child's benefiting, then you get signed up for everything and do what you can for your child. Ask the doctor or the social worker in the office to help you to find the resources that you need. That is their job. The first time Grace had seizures, we took her to the emergency room, and I can still picture that in my mind. It was a very busy day at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, and there were people standing around everywhere. All the examining rooms were full. The hospital beds were full, and it was crazy. Now, this was back in 2001. Medical care had not changed as much as it has nowadays. So back then, many people were still going to the ER for just basic things. But anyway, we were in the hallway. She's crying. She's having seizures. It was just devastating. So if you're going through that right now, my heart goes out to you. But I want you to know that when you get on the right meds, the seizures will get better. You're going to probably go through some hard months, maybe even a few years. But I would say that after about 4 years, they seem to settle down. And I think that's related to the growth of the brain. So do the best you can those first 4 years. My daughter was on phenobarbital and zonisamide, which, yes, the phenobarbital does make them somewhat sedated. But, you do what you got to do because you don't want them to have infantile spasms. And if your child has a lesser severe version of lissencephaly, infantile spasms will really set them back in any development that they may have. So you want to control those. Some kids take prednisone. There's also vigabatrin and other meds. But for us, my daughter was on zonisamide, which is also called Zonegran, for quite a few years. Now, after a while, the meds kind of quit working and you have to change them. So now my daughter's on a different medicine. Just be aware that if you start seeing more seizures, it may not be that your child is deteriorating. It may just be that they need a different medicine because they don't work the same forever. So just let your neurologist or your epilepsy specialist know that your child is having an increased amount of seizures. Now, as far as seizures, a lot of things can trigger them. And one is brain, when your child is growing as an infant and a baby, that alone causes them. Another thing is pain of any kind. So teething is definitely going to cause more seizures. Constipation is like the bane of kids who can't walk. And lissencephaly also causes like low muscle tone. Low muscle tone is not good for your digestive system. So constipation is something that you're probably going to have to deal with. And one method of treating that is using Miralax. Another one is prune juice. Other parents find that they can use pureed food and get better bowel movements. But whatever you do, try not to let your child get constipated because they will have more seizures when they're constipated. If your baby and your child is full of poop, they're going to have seizures and they're even going to get sick. I can't tell you how many times my daughter has been sick and, she was also constipated at that time. So there's definitely a correlation between being full of poop and getting sick. So my daughter was able to breastfeed for the first year. So that was really awesome. She was chubby and healthy, and other than her seizures and constipation, she was pretty healthy. For the first year, she breastfed. Then I decided to try giving her some baby food, which she could not eat. She could not eat the baby food. And then I tried to give her a bottle when I realized that, she wasn't going to ever be able to eat food. Children with lissencephaly, severe cases of lissencephaly and Miller Dieker Syndrome, they will be extremely delayed and they won't get better. They won't be able to crawl or talk or play with toys, or do the normal things that children do. Now, if your child and their brain is not 100% smooth, they may be able to do some of those things. If you have actual Miller Dieker syndrome, it is extremely unlikely, like almost impossible, that they will do any of those normal things. When they're younger, they may be able to do things like roll over or hold their head up a little better just because they're not as heavy. And, with therapy, they can be a little stronger. Now, I do know some kids who have had a lot of therapy all their lives. Like their parents have just been like paying extra and hiring people to come into their family and give their child specific therapy, like yoga on yoga balls and things like that. That's going to be very expensive, but if you can get it, it may improve your child's head control, their trunk strength, but they're still going to be in a wheelchair. They're still not going to be able to crawl or walk, but they might be more comfortable. Another problem with kids like ours is because of the looseness of their joints and their muscles and their hips, their hips tend to get dislocated, and they also get scoliosis. So be aware of that early on and do what you can as far as just proper positioning. I don't really know if you can prevent it, but that's something that you might want to talk to any physical therapist that that you have with your child, working with your child, is let them know that scoliosis and hip dislocation is going to happen, and ask them if there's anything they can do to help you with that. I mean, you may want to keep your child in some like tight clothing, like compression shorts or something like that, when they're young. Because, I mean, it's too late for my daughter. Her hips are already dislocated and she already has scoliosis. So I can't do anything, but I don't know. That might be something to consider. I just thought of that. Okay, let's talk about some positive things. One thing is, you may be thinking you're never going to survive all this emotional pain, all these things you have to learn. You may never figure it out. So I just want to encourage you to just take it one day at a time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. You will learn things as you go, and you'll figure it out in the moment, because that's what you have to do to take care of your child. You're going to figure it out. Ask people, join special needs groups like on Facebook or whatever social media you like best. There's people out there. There may be even an actual like support group in your city, if you're in a city, that you can meet with other parents. And I've met people online back in 2000. I met people, and they gave me more information than any doctor that I had seen. They gave me hope. They gave me practical tips, like the constipation stuff. They talked about the medications. They talked about therapy. I mean, I learned so much from those people, and they mean so much to me. I mean, they're like friends, and these are people all over the world. And we've grieved the loss of children that have been, that have already passed away. And we've prayed for the ones that have been in the hospital. We've offered, comfort in the, difficult times, and advice. So reach out to people, because you need that sense of community. You need that encouragement. One thing that the people told me right away that helped me so much is to know that every Lissencephaly child is a little bit different. Each child is special, just like your normal children, your typical children. And so, just because you read that this worked with one child, or this child can do this or can't do this, your child might be able to do it. So never give up. Never give up hope. Be realistic, but also be optimistic. Um, try things. You never know. Your child might surprise you. She Try putting a toy in your child's hand every day. You never know. One day she or he might grasp that toy, and it will be an amazing, awesome moment in your family. You'll probably cry that your child is holding a toy. Or, put bright lights and colorful toys hanging over your baby's bed so they can see them. Don't worry about choking hazards. They're not going to choke. They can't reach them. Put them, do everything you can to stimulate your child's brain with music, with taking them outside. Talk to them, touch them, let your friends and family hold them, because all that love and attention is good for their development, and it's good for you too, to realize that your child is loved and cared about by other people, even if they're different. And one thing I've learned since becoming a special needs parent is that all children are different. Every child has some